Poilievre and Donald Trump are in sync. That's what's at stake here.
Hold on to your Snickers bar. Today's top stories: Mark Carney's elbows up is now thumbs up. It was all a complete scam. Alberta separation. The First Nations are furious, and so is Doug Ford. But guess what? Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is laser focused. Man, oh man, I wish she was the Prime Minister of Canada. Get this, the UK and the United States have officially made a trade agreement that is absolutely massive. Canada, we got absolutely nothing. But hey, elbows up, Canada. And the Canadian media outlets are pumping article after article saying that Canadians are scared to go down to the United States and they're changing their travel plans to stay within Canada or go to Europe. Well, I did my own online poll, and you are not going to believe the outcome. I look forward to delivering that. I'm going to look at food prices in Canada in the last 4 months. They are going to absolutely shock you. Or maybe not. There's a new pope, and guess what? He's American. And the Bank of Canada just held a press conference about the financial stability of Canada. And it was described as a ticking time bomb. Let's go. We're going to start today's episode with Mark Carney and his complete scam, elbows up scam, saying he's going to fight, and our relationship with the United States is officially over. Who remembers this clip?
We will need to ensure that Canada can succeed in a drastically different world. The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperations, is over.
There you have it, Canada. Our relationship with the United States is officially over. You better vote for me because I'm the only person that has #1 economist in the entire world, and I'm going to save you, Canada. Remember this clip.
Has been the commercial relationship, the trading relationship, and the direction of that relationship. It was only a few months ago that many responded to the initial U.S. tariffs and discussions of tariffs by saying, this was not me, to be clear, but some prominent Canadians said, well, we should have a customs union with the United States. We should become closer to the United States. It's clear that that strategy has tremendous risks, would be misguided in my view, and misguided and create tremendous risks. There may be certain sectors where that's the case, but as an overall approach, that view, that relationship's over. As I just said.
Get that, Canada? Our economic business trading, it's just unreal. That aspect where we trade amongst each other is over. But for military, we'll continue to do that. And I'm sure many of you did not forget about this.
The essential vote of our lifetimes, because President Trump has ignited a trade war that is ruptured. No, we don't like Trump here. Ruptured the global economy and changed forever our relationship with the United States. That old relationship is over, unfortunately. It never 51. It is a tragedy. It is a tragedy, but it's the new reality. And we're responding. We are responding with purpose and with force that are causing maximum damage in the United States with minimum impact here. We are protecting our workers by taking all the dollars. Steve McKinnon is counting all the dollars from those tariffs. And he's making sure that they are going to the workers and the businesses most affected by Trump's unjustified trade war. And above all, we are building Canada strong.
Here we have Melanie Joly explain to us that the meeting was a huge success between Donald Trump and Mark Carney because they got to get together and get to know each other a little bit more. This is a great start to their relationship. Somebody needs to tell Melanie Joly that they've been business partners and buddies for decades. Check it out.
What was the idea of the team was to make sure first and foremost that Prime Minister Carney and President Trump could meet, that they could have a personal relationship that is important. Why? Because we know that President Trump is the sole decider of what's going on within the U.S. administration. And therefore, that relationship is key. It was shown not only in the public, through a media conference, but also afterwards through a how would say productive conversation that is established now. They know each other. They got to spend time together. Now the next steps are definitely to see what can be done on the trade side and on the security side.
What's actually unbelievable is Melanie Joly was brought to the White House with Mark Carney. Mark Carney's like, Melanie Joly, you are coming. Good thing, because Melanie Joly has a $51,000 a month bar tab. I'm sure it came in handy. That's enough of Mark Carney. Fight, 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 elbows up, and we're gonna devastate the US, but minimum damage in Canada. Now, let's fast forward to today. I honestly believe that they believe we are all dumb. Just 24 hours after their meeting at the White House, the Liberals drop a propaganda video of Mark Carney saying he's going to deepen ties and integration and business with the United States. And at the same time, Donald Trump published his own propaganda video that looked like a wedding video. You can't make any of this stuff up. You guys take a look at this video and let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section.
I conveyed to the president today what our countries have long proven to be true, that Canada and the United States are stronger when we work together. We can get a better deal for our workers. We can create more opportunities for our businesses. We can build stronger economies across North America when we work together. The question is how we will cooperate in the future, how we can build an economic and security relationship built on mutual respect. We agreed to have further conversations in the coming weeks, and we are looking forward to meeting in person at the G7 summit in Kananaskis in Alberta.
Did that sound like our relationship is officially over, which he campaigned on? Now let's take a look at Donald Trump's wedding video. That's right, it looked like a wedding video.
It's a great honor to have Prime Minister Mark Carney with us. A few days ago, he won a very big election in Canada, and I think Canada chose a very talented person, a very good person.
Thank you for your hospitality and above all for your leadership. You're a transformational president, and I've been elected to transform Canada with a similar focus on the economy, securing our borders. And the history of Canada and the U.S. is we're stronger when we work together, and there's many opportunities to work together, and I look forward to finding those areas of mutual cooperation.
Unbelievable. I want to hear from you in the comments section. What do you think of Donald Trump's wedding video and Mark Carney saying that we're going to build, but that involves building a relationship with the U.S.? So this video with Yves-François Blanchet has now aged perfectly, in my opinion.
Seems more and more to have been a stunt. He wanted to make a statement. I am Mark Carney. I'm the best of them all. I'm a great negotiator. I have managed crisis in the past. I would change the world. Trust me. And it appears that it never happened. That the call was not what has been described afterwards. That there was no agreement, no support for Canada's sovereignty, no beginning for a deal. Just the show of a man who wanted to pretend something which appears today not to be true. I believe many people in Canada and in Quebec will say, what the hell is that? And if that is not true, what else is not true?
That's right, Canada. Elbows Up was a big scam to everybody. There's no elbows up after post-election. Let's hear Yves Blanchette roast Mark Carney post-meeting. This is his recap of the meeting.
The expectations were not very high. Don't shame us in front of the president. Stand your ground. I believe he did that. He did not obtain any better deal about tariffs. We did not believe he would do that. He did not obtain the president from keeping this stupid idea of the 51st state alive. And he forgot, because it was very recent in time, to tell the president that it would be absolutely inadmissible for him to impose tariffs on this closely linked economy in cinema between United States, Quebec, and Canada.
You know, he has a pretty good sense of humor. He's like, yeah, he forgot to mention the film industry, which he's going to impose 100% tariff on Canada, which represents $14 billion to our economy, which is a big deal because it happened so soon. It's only 24 hours ago it happened, or 2 days ago, so he didn't mention it because it happened so soon. It would be the opposite. It was so soon, it should be fresh on your mind. And who remembers the Liberals warning us that Pierre Poilievre, if he wins the election, he's going to kneel down to Donald Trump and let him conquer us? Then Mark Carney flew to D.C., kneeled before Trump, and called him a transformational leader. And he got hit with the 51st state conquer threat. You can't make this hypocrisy up.
So Donald Trump thinks he can weaken us with his plan to divide and conquer. Pierre Poilievre's plan will leave us divided and ready to be conquered. Because a person who worships at the altar of Donald Trump will kneel before him, not stand up to him.
This was one of my favorite memes of the interview meeting with Donald Trump in the Oval Office. Check out Mark Carney trying to speak.
Substantial period of time.
I think. Just to clarify, Mr. President, is there anything the Prime Minister can say to you today to change your mind on tariffing Canada?
Tariffing cars?
Tariffing Canada. Is there anything he could say to you in the course of your meetings with him today that would get you to lift tariffs on Canada?
No.
Why not?
Just the way it is.
What's the first state? If Canadians don't want it, would you respect that?
Sure, I would. But this is not necessarily a one-day deal. This is over a period of time they have to make that decision. Yes, go ahead. Yeah. Substantial period of time. I think.
It was officially 6 different times Mark Carney tried to speak, but that was the whole time. That leads me to this, because I actually counted how many minutes that Mark Carney spoke and how many minutes Donald Trump spoke. You are not going to believe the numbers. So Mark Carney was able to speak for 3 minutes and 18 seconds, and Donald Trump spoke for just under 30 minutes. Mark Carney got 10% of the speaking time. That is exactly how this entire thing went. Mark Carney got dominated. This leads us to our next top story, Alberta separation. Who remembers Justin Trudeau all red-eyed and he looked like he had a party night? Tell us that separation, well, we just got to take a look at this.
Opt out of the Federation. You can't opt out of Canada, and we expect people to obey the law. You can't opt out of the Federation. You can't opt out of Canada, and we expect people to obey the law.
Yeah, and the First Nations in Canada absolutely lost their mind and said, yeah, you guys are absolutely insane for even proposing it.
Bill 54, this is what we think of you. You're garbage like that. This is treaty land, and we stand on it today.
This is treaty country, and any talk of separation is really insanity.
There you have it. The First Nations are not having all this separation talk, and neither is Doug Ford.
This is a time to unite the country, not people saying, oh, I'm leaving the country, or I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You know, united we stand, divided we fall.
Yeah, he had a lot more to say after he made that press conference on how frustrated and angry he is about separation talk with Alberta. Here is Danielle Smith on Doug Ford's comments.
Possible separatism referendum.
Well, Doug and I have a great friendship. We don't agree on everything. In fact, I think we supported different people in the last federal election. And so we don't have to agree on everything. But what I will say is we have a constructive conversation at the coffee table. I continue to look forward to having a constructive conversation with him at the coffee table. But he's the Premier of Ontario. I'm the Premier of Alberta. We just have different issues that we have to respond to in our respective jurisdictions.
Do you think he should stick in his own lane? Or, you know, what do you say to as any kind of a retort?
Well, I don't tell him how he should run his province, and I would hope that he doesn't tell me how I should run mine. But
that's right. She just told him to stay in his lane. Stay in your lane, Doug Ford. Just shut the hell up. And I think he probably got a call from Mark Carney or someone. Check out how Doug Ford reacted today, just 24 hours later. This guy just flip-flops at every moment.
Toronto will be going out for lunch. So there's not this big rift that everyone's playing out. I just want to support the people of Alberta and Saskatchewan. They've been ignored for a decade now, and I support them. It's as simple as that.
Did the premiers tell her that maybe having a referendum isn't such a great idea against the backdrop of these annexation threats from the United States? You know, you're saying, why did we fall?
Yeah.
Did the premiers
No
say
one brought that up. Maybe that comes on a private conversation. But we're all meeting on June the 1st, June the 2nd, out in Saskatchewan, and we're all united. I'm telling you we are. I know what you mentioned about Alberta, but we're going to make sure we support the people from Alberta and Saskatchewan that's felt left out over the last 10 years. I'll be 100% behind them. And I want to build those pipelines on one condition. They use Ontario steel. So we got to protect that.
Wow, I don't know what went into his coffee this morning because that was a completely different Doug Ford. Do you see what I mean? He goes from one side to the other, and guess who else does that? Our new Prime Minister. Doug Ford and our new Prime Minister are one and the same. Now we hear from the UK Prime Minister Strymer, and I'm going to warn everybody in advance. Remember Mark Carney saying we're moving away from integration with the United States? Well, yeah, it's going to be a hard pill to swallow here.
And we must use this moment to do the same. Deepening our partnerships with allies, old and new, from across Europe to meet the defence challenges of our age, to the United States, an indispensable ally for our economic and national security. As you know, talks with the US have been ongoing, and you'll hear more from me about that later today.
And we'll have maybe before we're going to, as you know, the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. We're going to UAE and Qatar, and that'll be, I guess, Monday night. Some of you are coming with us. I think before then we're going to have a very, very big announcement to make, like as big as it gets, and I won't tell you on what, but it's going to, and it's very positive. I'd tell you if it was negative or positive. I can't keep that out. It is really, really positive. And that announcement will be made either Thursday or Friday or
They just secured a deal with the UK. Mark Carney is still scratching his head right now. So Mark Carney's first official visit was to the UK to try to make a deal with them, but the UK was actually busy trying to make a deal with the United States because they know that it is essential that you make a deal with the US if you want to be prosperous in this world. Here is Donald Trump's announcement about the massive deal with the UK. Canada got nothing yesterday except for some 51st state comments.
The deal includes billions of dollars of increased market access for American exports,
especially in agriculture, dramatically increasing access for American beef, ethanol, and virtually all of the products produced by our great farmers. And our Secretary, as you know, of Agriculture is here. Brooke, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, sir.
You'll let the farmers know. In addition, the UK will reduce or eliminate numerous non-tariff barriers that unfairly discriminated against American products. But this is now turning out, I think, really to be a great deal for both countries, because it'll be really great for the UK also. So they're opening up the country. Their country is a little closed, and we appreciate that. They'll also be fast-tracking American goods through their customs process, so our exports go to a very, very quick form of approval, and there won't be any red tape. Things are going to move very quickly both ways. The final details are being written up in the coming weeks. We'll have it all very conclusive, but the actual deal is a very conclusive one. We think just about everything's been approved. So good for both countries, and we'll also receive new market access for American chemicals, machinery, and many other industrial products that weren't allowed, and they'll end up getting products that they'll be able to price, and if they like them better and we make great products, they'll be buying those products, but they were not available in the UK. Furthermore, in a historic step, the deal includes plans that will bring the United Kingdom into the economic security alignment with the United States. That's the first of its kind. So we have a big economic security blanket, and that's very important, and we feel very, very comfortable with that because it's been a great ally, truly one of our great allies. I mean, a lot of people say our greatest ally. I don't want to insult people by saying that, but I can say it's certainly one of our greatest.
Unbelievable. So they got a trade deal and they got a protection deal from the United States. We're still waiting for our deal in Canada. We're hoping Mark Carney would be that economic genius and get it done. I guess we're going to have to wait. Now, our next major story is all of the newspapers and mainstream media in Canada are reporting that the majority of Canadians feel unwelcome and unsafe to travel to the United States, a new poll has found. We go down here and it shows that the majority, which is 52% of respondents, agree it is no longer safe for Canadians to travel to the United States. Wow. With mainstream media pumping out with all these articles saying that Canadians are avoiding the US and now prefer to travel within Canada or Europe. So I thought it would be a good idea to see what Canadians thought. And I had 3,700 people respond and vote. And let's test this theory out. And I said, where are you most likely going to travel in the next 12 months? Almost 50% say they're going to go down to the United States. Only 5.8% says Europe. Within Canada is only 13%. And the remainder, I'm broke. I'm going nowhere. Let's see some of the comments. Heading to Boston for the weekend. My next trip is the US. B. Craig says states a couple times, but man, the dollar makes it hard. And I agree. Everything is more expensive. Scott McKenna says, been to Texas 3 times this month, heading down to Scottsdale in June. Absolutely no issue. The U.S. border workers, same old question, and the people down there have no clue. Probably at least twice. People are going to Mexico, and that makes sense. And Believe in Yourself and Rainbow says, I'm going to the US, I'm going property shopping. The reason I did this survey is don't always, or just don't believe mainstream media and all the headlines. This is a real survey that was done and people are not buying it. Over 50% say they're going to go down to the US, nothing changes. And only 5% are going to Europe, and only 13% are traveling within Canada. And the next story is food prices. The Liberals claim inflation is under control. It's been within the 2% target for nearly a year. Meanwhile, grocery prices have exploded in just 4 months. It's only gonna get worse. And Mark Carney's plan is to invest, not spend, invest $250 billion into the economy. This isn't stability. This is a ticking time bomb. Check out the prices. Oranges, 27%, sweet potatoes, 26%, carrots, 24%, avocados, 20%, beef, all cuts is up 20% in only 4 months. Salmon, 19%, white rice, 19%, frozen corn, 15%. That 2%, it's not regarding food. And the breaking news today is there's a new Pope announcement, and he's an American. Here's the white smoke. Look at the size of that crowd. Huge. By the way, this is the first ever American Pope. And that leads me to this post that I made. Did Donald Trump know that the Pope would be American? Because just on the weekend, on his social media account, this picture was published. Donald Trump knew that the Pope would be American, in my opinion. And the Bank of Canada made an announcement today by Tiff Macklin, and he warned Canadians that a prolonged U.S. tariff could trigger a downward spiral in the Canadian economy. Defaults rise, lending dries up, and financial stability at risk. This isn't just a trade dispute, it's a ticking time bomb. Yes, it's called a downward spiral. Let's see what he says.
Now the Canadian economy and financial system face a new threat. U.S. trade policy has taken a dramatic protectionist shift. Tariffs and uncertainty have sharply reduced prospects for global economic growth, and financial markets have been rocked by chaotic policy announcements and reversals. A long-lasting trade war poses the greatest threat to the Canadian economy. It also increases risks to financial stability. There are two key concerns. In the near term, the unpredictability of U.S. trade policy could cause further market volatility and strains on liquidity. In an extreme case, market volatility could turn into market dysfunction. In the medium term, a prolonged global trade war would have severe economic consequences. It would reduce growth and increase unemployment. This could, in turn, have important ramifications for the financial system. With debt still at high levels, some households and businesses may be unable to keep up with payments. If loan losses occur on a large enough scale, banks could cut back on lending in response. This would exacerbate the economic downturn and put more pressure on businesses and households.
Yeah, so buckle up, Canada. When the Bank of Canada warns Canadians that something's going to be coming in the future, this is called an alarm bell. And the reason that they're saying this is that 60% of all mortgages in Canada are renewing this year or next year. And all of them were taken out during the pandemic when the rates were at rock bottom. So they're all going to double in cost. I showed you the food price increases. How far will this go before it breaks down? That's what he's saying. And once things start breaking down, lending dries up. Lenders don't want to lend on a loan that's going to default. And then Carolyn Rogers also added to the conversation, and that's what I said is the 60% of mortgages renew and job losses could spike with the trade disputes. Defaults will surge and liquidity will dry up. This could get ugly.
Particularly in households without a mortgage. For example, the share of these households that are behind on credit card or auto loan payments has continued to go up. Among households with a mortgage, about 60% are facing renewal this year or next. Most of those renewing will see their payments rise because they took out their mortgage during the pandemic when rates were at historic lows. But the average increase in payment will be smaller than we expected a year ago. Still, if a large shock causes job losses, it'll be harder for some households to keep up with their debt payments. A prolonged trade war may be that shock. It would cause demand for Canadian exports to fall. It would disrupt supply chains, threatening jobs and incomes. Workers in trade-dependent industries could find it particularly difficult to continue managing their debt. A prolonged trade war would also matter for businesses. Most Canadian businesses have managed to adjust to past interest rate increases, and the surge in small business insolvencies last year proved to be temporary. But businesses in trade-related sectors, especially those with high debt, low profitability, or cash reserves, could also fall behind on debt payments. But if credit losses occur on a large enough scale, banks could cut back on lending in response. Struggling households and businesses would then have less access to credit to get through tough times. This cycle could exacerbate the economic downturn. In the non-bank financial sector, the growing presence of hedge funds in the market for Government of Canada bonds raises some concerns. Government bond markets are the foundation of the financial system, and they need to function smoothly for all other markets to work well. The increased activity by hedge funds has helped absorb increased issuance of government debt, keeping yields lower and liquidity higher. But hedge funds have also taken on increasingly large amounts of leverage to fund their purchase of government bonds. And this makes them more likely to pull back from these crucial markets in periods of stress, introducing added volatility. The recent gyrations in the U.S. Treasury market clearly illustrated this risk. If the trade war causes a larger spike in volatility than we've seen so far, leveraged hedge funds might rush to sell their holdings. That could strain liquidity across core markets, increasing stress throughout the financial system.
There you have it, Canada. There's a stark warning that things could rapidly deteriorate in Canada. So that's the end of this show. If you liked this content, make sure you comment, share, and let's grow this page as fast as possible. I'm going to continue to deliver you videos every single day so you are ahead of the curve. This is going to be an interesting 4 years. Are the Liberal government going to be the same Liberal government that we had for the last 10 years? Or are they going to all of a sudden turn 180 and become a completely new government? We need to rapidly develop our oil and gas industry so that we could weather the storm. I'll see you on the next report.